The rose at Seacliff Cove begins with a single flower, brushing the coat of a powerful stranger. But when a small-town florist challenges a wealthy developer's vision, the battle to save a seaside community turns into something far more personal. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun broke through the clouds as Lina Morales arranged the last of her roses in her wicker basket. She had been up since 5, carefully cutting the best blooms from her small garden behind her rented cottage. Each Sunday, rain or shine, she took her place on the boardwalk of Seacliff Cove to sell these flowers, her small contribution to keeping a roof over her children's heads. "Mom, can I have my lunch money for Monday?" Miguel, her 12-year-old son, called from the kitchen where he was pouring cereal for himself and his 10-year-old sister, Sophia. "It's in the jar on the fridge, honey," Lina answered, wiping her hands on her jeans. Her fingers were already red from the thorns, a familiar pain she barely noticed anymore. "Make sure Sophia eats before Mrs. Jenkins picks you both up for church." At 41, Lina carried the quiet dignity of a woman who had faced life's challenges head-on. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, a few strands of grey just starting to show. She worked 5 days a week cleaning rooms at the Harbour View Inn, and weekends were for her roses and her children. "We won't be late," Miguel promised, his serious eyes, so like his father's, watching as she gathered her things. Lina kissed both her children, inhaling the sweet scent of Sophia's shampoo. "I'll be back after lunch. Be good for Mrs. Jenkins." The walk to the boardwalk took 15 minutes, the smell of salt air growing stronger as Lina neared the beach. Seacliff Cove was waking up, shopkeepers unlocking doors, joggers on the beach, and the first tourists wandering down from the hotels that dotted the hillside above town. She set up her small stand near the entrance to the wharf, arranging her roses with care. Some were gathered in simple bouquets tied with twine, others sold individually. A hand-painted sign read, "Morales Roses, $3 each, $15 for bouquets." "Morning, Lina," called Bill Hopkins from his nearby souvenir stand. "Those look especially nice today." "Thanks, Bill. The weather's been good to them." She smiled, setting out her cash box. By 11, Lina had sold nearly half her stock. The boardwalk was busy now, filled with weekenders from the city and families enjoying the spring sunshine. She watched people pass by, some stopping to admire or purchase her roses, others barely noticing her as they hurried past. That's when she first saw him. He stood out immediately, tall, with salt and pepper hair and wearing a tailored coat that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He was talking on his phone, his face serious, his free hand gesturing as if the person on the other end could see him. "Trust me, Warren, this town is perfect. Untapped potential. The beachfront properties alone will triple in value once we announce the development." His voice carried across the boardwalk, confident and commanding. "The locals have no idea what's coming." Lina frowned slightly. She'd heard rumors about developers looking at Seacliff Cove, but most people thought nothing would come of it. The Howard town had managed to stay relatively unchanged for decades, which was part of its charm. The man, Daniel Huxley, though Lina didn't know his name yet, ended his call and headed toward the cafe next to her stand. As he passed, the wind caught one of Lina's roses, sending it brushing against his expensive coat. "Watch it," he said sharply, brushing at his sleeve as if the flower had soiled it. "I'm sorry," Lina said, reaching to steady her basket. He looked at her, then really looked at her, taking in her simple clothes, the basket of roses, the small cash box. Something in his expression shifted, and not in a kind way. "Selling pity petals won't change your luck, sweetheart," he muttered, loud enough for nearby tourists to hear. Lina felt her cheeks burn, but she said nothing. Years of learning to swallow pride had taught her, when speaking up only made things worse. She simply straightened her shoulders and turned to help a young couple looking at her bouquets. Daniel Huxley continued to the cafe, already forgetting. "So the encounter. Was that man rude to you?" the young woman asked Lina, frowning after Daniel. "Nothing I can't handle," Lina answered with a small smile. "These pink ones just opened yesterday. They'll last at least a week if you change the water daily." Later that afternoon, as Lina packed up her remaining roses, Bill Hopkins wandered over. "You hear about the developer staying at Harbour View?" he asked, leaning against the railing. "The man in the expensive coat?" Lina guessed. "That's him, Daniel Huxley. Word is he's looking to buy up half the beachfront and build some fancy resort. Town council's meeting about it Tuesday night. Bill shook his head. End of Seacliff as we know it if he gets his way. Lena's stomach tightened. Harborview Inn, where she worked, where she couldn't afford to lose her job. Maybe it won't happen, she said, more to herself than to Bill. That evening, after dinner and helping with homework, Lena sat on her small back porch looking at her garden. The roses glowed in the fading light, red, pink, yellow, and her special white ones with the blush centers. This garden, this home was all she had managed to create after losing Carlos to cancer 5 years ago. Mom, Sophia appeared in the doorway, already in her pajamas. Are we going to have to move? Lena held out her arms, and Sophia climbed onto her lap, though she was getting too big for it now. Who said anything about moving, sweetheart? Miguel said there's a rich man who wants to tear down buildings to make a hotel. Is he going to tear down our house? Lena kissed her daughter's head. No, Carino. We rent this house, but Mrs. Delaney owns it, and she's not selling to anyone. Don't worry. But later, after the children were asleep, Lena worried. If a big resort came, would Mrs. Delaney be tempted by a big offer? Would Harborview lose business to a new hotel? Would her roses be enough if she lost hours at work? Monday morning found Lena back at Harborview Inn, pushing her cleaning cart down the hallway of the second floor. Maria, another housekeeper, hurried over to her. Lena, you won't believe who checked in yesterday. That developer everyone's talking about. He's in the Bayview suite. I know who he is, Lena said quietly, remembering his dismissive words. Well, guess who gets to clean his room today? Maria raised her eyebrows meaningfully. You're giving me his room, Lena asked. I traded with you. I've got the family with the messy twins in 215. I'd rather deal with them than some rich jerk who might get us all fired when he builds his resort. Maria patted Lena's arm. Besides, he's in meetings all day. You won't even see him. An hour later, Lena knocked on the door of the Bayview suite. Hearing no answer, she used her keycard to enter. The suite was exactly as she expected. Expensive clothes tossed carelessly on chairs, laptop open on the desk, file folders spread across the coffee table. Through the large windows, she could see the entire boardwalk and the beach beyond. Lena worked efficiently, making the bed with fresh sheets, cleaning the bathroom, emptying trash cans. As she dusted the desk, she couldn't help glancing at the open folder labeled Seacliff Cove Development, Phase 1. A map of the town was marked with red circles, the park where her children played, the old community center, and several businesses along the boardwalk. Beside it lay a mock-up showing gleaming new buildings where those places now stood. Her hands trembled slightly as she moved away from the desk. It wasn't her place to look at his things. She finished cleaning and was about to leave when she paused, looking at the perfect white rose in her cleaning cart. She'd brought it because it was too beautiful to sell, slightly opened, with just a hint of pink at the center of its cream petals. She'd planned to take it home to Sophia. Instead, Lena took the rose and placed it carefully on the freshly made bed. No note, no explanation, just the rose. She wasn't sure why she did it, whether from defiance or some deeper instinct. But as she closed the door behind her, she felt a small sense of satisfaction. That night, as Lena helped Sophia with her spelling words and Miguel with his science project, a display about how plants grow toward light, the phone rang. Hello, Lena answered, wedging the phone between her ear and shoulder as she corrected Sophia's spelling of because. Is this Lena Morales? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's calling? This is Janet Clark from the Seacliff Cove Town Council. We understand you work at Harborview Inn and also sell flowers on the boardwalk. Lena's heart began to race. That's right. We're having an emergency town meeting tomorrow night about the proposed development. Several business owners suggested we invite you since you might be particularly affected. The rose at Seacliff Cove begins with a single flower, brushing the coat of a powerful stranger. But when a small-town florist challenges a wealthy developer's vision, the battle to save a seaside community turns into something far more personal. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun broke through the clouds as Lena Morales arranged the last of her roses in her wicker basket. She had been up since 5, carefully cutting the best blooms from her small garden behind her rented cottage. Each Sunday, rain or shine, she took her place on the boardwalk of Seacliff Cove to sell these flowers, her small contribution to keeping a roof over her children's heads. "Mom, can I have my lunch money for Monday?" Miguel, her 12-year-old son, called from the kitchen, where he was pouring cereal for himself and his 10-year-old sister, Sophia. "It's in the jar on the fridge, honey," Lena answered, wiping her hands on her jeans. Her fingers were already red from the thorns, a familiar pain she barely noticed anymore. "Make sure Sophia eats before Mrs. Jenkins picks you both up for church." At 41, Lena carried the quiet dignity of a woman who had faced life's challenges head-on. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, a few strands of grey just starting to show. She worked 5 days a week cleaning rooms at Defiance, the Harborview Inn, and weekends were for her roses and her children. "We won't be late," Miguel promised, his serious eyes, so like his father's, watching as she gathered her things. Lena kissed both her children, inhaling the sweet scent of Sophia's shampoo. "I'll be back after lunch. Be good for Mrs. Jenkins." The walk to the boardwalk took 15 minutes, the smell of salt air growing stronger as Lena neared the beach. Seacliff Cove was waking up, shopkeepers unlocking doors, joggers on the beach, and the first tourists wandering down from the hotels that dotted the hillside above town. She set up her small stand near the entrance to the wharf, arranging her roses with care. Some were gathered in simple bouquets tied with twine, others sold individually. A hand-painted sign read, "Morales Roses, $3 each, $15 for bouquets." "Morning, Lena," called Bill Hopkins from his nearby souvenir stand. "Those look especially nice today." "Thanks, Bill, the weather's been good to them." She smiled, setting out her cash box. By 11, Lena had sold nearly half her stock. The boardwalk was busy now, filled with weekenders from the city and families enjoying the spring sunshine. She watched people pass by, some stopping to admire or purchase her roses, others barely noticing her as they hurried past. That's when she first saw him. He stood out immediately, tall, with salt and pepper hair, and wearing a tailored coat that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He was talking on his phone, his face serious, his free hand gesturing as if the person on the other end could see him. "Trust me, Warren, this town is perfect. Untapped potential. The beachfront properties alone will triple in value once we announce the development." His voice carried across the boardwalk, confident and commanding. "The locals have no idea what's coming." Lena frowned slightly. She'd heard rumors about developers looking at Seacliff Cove, but most people thought nothing would come of it. The town had managed to stay relatively unchanged for decades, which was part of its charm. The man, Daniel Huxley, though Lena didn't know his name yet, ended his call and headed toward the cafe next to her stand. As he passed, the wind caught one of Lena's roses, sending it brushing against his expensive coat. "Watch it," he said sharply, brushing at his sleeve as if the flower had soiled it. "I'm sorry," Lena said, reaching to steady her basket. He looked at her, then really looked at her, taking in her simple clothes, the basket of roses, the small cash box. Something in his expression shifted, and not in a kind way. "Selling pity petals won't change your luck, sweetheart," he muttered, loud enough for nearby tourists to hear. Lena felt her cheeks burn, but she said nothing. Years of learning to swallow pride had taught her, when speaking up only made things worse. She simply straightened her shoulders and turned to help a young couple looking at her bouquets. Daniel Huxley continued to the cafe, already forgetting the encounter. "Was that man rude to you?" the young woman asked Lena, frowning after Daniel. "Nothing I can't handle," Lena answered with a small smile. "These pink ones just opened yesterday. My family's run our shop for 30 years. Some existing businesses could lease space in the new retail area," Daniel said. "At competitive rates, of course." Lena sat quietly, taking it all in. Then Mayor Thompson pointed to her. "Lena Morales has a question." She hadn't raised her hand, but now all eyes turned to her, including Daniel's. For a moment his confident expression faltered as he recognized her. Lena stood, hands shaking slightly. "Mr. Huxley, I clean rooms at Harborview Inn. I also sell roses on the boardwalk to help support my 2 children." Her voice grew steadier as she spoke. "This town isn't just buildings and property values. It's people, families, histories. What happens to us if we can't afford to live here anymore after property values rise? The room fell silent. Daniel stared at her, remembering the white rose on his pillow that morning. Economic growth benefits everyone, he said finally. But his words sounded hollow even to his own ears. Not if we're not here to see it, Lena replied softly, then sat down. The meeting continued for another hour, growing heated at times. When it ended, people lingered in small groups, talking anxiously. Lena gathered her purse, ready to hurry. Home to her children. Excuse me. She turned to find Daniel Huxley standing behind her. You're the woman from the boardwalk, he said. The one who left the rose in my room. Lena met his gaze. I'm the housekeeper, assigned to your suite. Why? Did you leave it? She hesitated, unsure herself of the full reason. Because you looked at me like I was nothing. The rose was to remind you that I'm not. Daniel appeared taken aback by her honesty. Before he could respond, Bill Hopkins approached. Lena, we're gathering at Ruby's diner to talk strategy. Are you coming? She nodded to Bill, then turned back to Daniel. Good night, Mr. Huxley. As she walked away, Daniel found himself watching her. The straight set of her shoulders, the dignified way she moved through the crowd. Something about her bothered him, made him feel off balance in a way business opponents never could. The next morning, Lena arrived at Harbour View Inn for her shift, dreading the possibility of encountering Daniel again. Maria caught her in the break room. Did you hear? Mr. Developer checked out an hour ago. Said he had business in the city but would be back next week. Lena felt a mix of relief and, strangely, disappointment. Did he say anything about the town meeting? Not to me, Maria shrugged, but he left something for you at the front desk. Puzzled, Lena went to the reception area where Jenny handed her a small envelope. Inside was a business card with Daniel Huxley, Huxley Development Group, printed in sleek black letters. On the back, handwritten, Your rose made me think. Let's talk. I'll be back Monday. Lena slipped the card into her pocket, unsure what to make of it. Later, as she cleaned the Bayview suite, now occupied by a retired couple from Arizona, she wondered what Daniel Huxley could possibly want to talk to her about. Friday night, Lena sat at her kitchen table after the children were asleep, going through bills. Between rent, utilities, school expenses, and groceries, her paycheck from the inn barely stretched to cover everything. The rose money helped, but it wasn't enough for savings or emergencies. What would happen if she lost either? Source of income? Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Lena worked her regular shift at the inn, then spent the afternoon preparing roses for Sunday. That evening, the doorbell rang just as she was finishing dinner with the children. I'll get it, Miguel offered, jumping up from the table. He returned, looking confused. Mom, there's nobody there, but this was on the porch. In his hands was a single red rose, not one of hers, with a note, I've been thinking about what you said. D.H. Lena stared at the flower. How had Daniel Huxley found her home? And what did this mean? Who's it from? Sophia asked, curious. Just someone I met at work, Lena said, putting the rose in water. Finish your dinner, Mija. Sunday brought more surprises. As Lena set up her flower stand on the boardwalk, she noticed people gathering in the park. Signs were being prepared, and someone had strung a banner between two trees. Save our Seacliff. Bill Hopkins hurried over to her stand. The town's organizing against the development. First protest is today at noon. We need you there, Lena. Your question at the meeting got people talking. I'll come after I pack up, she promised. The morning passed quickly as tourists and locals bought her roses. Several people mentioned the meeting, thanking her for speaking up. By 11, she had sold nearly everything. As she was counting her earnings, a shadow fell across her small table. Looking up, Lena found herself face to face with Daniel Huxley. He was dressed casually in jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck, but he looked different somehow. Less polished, more human. Your note said Monday, she said, surprised. I came back early, wanted to see the town on a normal day. He gestured to her nearly empty basket. Business is good? Better than usual. Everyone's out for the protest, I think. Daniel glanced toward the park, where the crowd was growing. Yes, I saw that. An awkward silence fell between them. Why did you leave me a rose? Lena finally asked. And how did you find my house? Small towns, Daniel shrugged. Asked the right person at the right coffee shop. As for why, he paused. Your question at the meeting. It stayed with me. Did it change anything? I'm still figuring that out. He looked around the boardwalk, taking in the worn but charming buildings, the families strolling by, the local shops. Would you show me around? Not as a developer, just to see what I'm missing. Lena hesitated. I promised to join the protest at noon. Before that then, he said. Please. Something in his expression made her nod. She packed up her remaining roses, tucked the cash box into her bag, and led him away from the boardwalk. This is the real Seacliff, she said as they walked through the town. She showed him the bakery where Mrs. Chen gave day-old bread to families who needed it, the community garden where seniors taught children to grow vegetables, the library where Miguel and Sophia spent rainy afternoons. And here's the park you want to replace, she said, as they approached the gathering crowd. Families were picnicking on blankets, children played on swings, and townsfolk were setting up for the protest. That's the gazebo where we have summer concerts, Lena continued. And over there, under that big oak tree, her voice caught. That's where my husband Carlos proposed to me 14 years ago, before he got sick, before he died. Daniel looked at her with new eyes. I didn't know. Why would you? We're just another property to acquire. She spotted Miguel and Sophia running toward her from Mrs. Jenkins' side. Those are my children. They grew up playing in this park. What am I supposed to tell them when it's gone? Before Daniel could answer, the children reached them. Mom, we made signs, Sophia exclaimed, holding up a poster board with Save Our Park written in colorful letters. Mrs. Jenkins helped us, Miguel added, then eyed Daniel suspiciously. Who's this? This is Mr. Huxley, Lena said. He's visiting our town. Miguel's eyes widened in recognition. You're the developer, the one who wants to tear down our park. Daniel looked uncomfortable under the boy's direct gaze. I'm considering some changes to the town, yes. Why? Sophia asked simply. Don't you like it how it is? Before Daniel could formulate an answer, Mayor Thompson's voice came through a megaphone, calling everyone to gather for the protest. We should go, Lena told her children. She turned to Daniel. Thank you for the rose, but if you're really thinking about what I said, you'll need to do more than send flowers. As Lena walked away with her children, Daniel stood alone, watching the community rally against his plans. For the first time in his career, the promise of profit felt hollow compared to the weight of what would be lost. That evening, Lena helped the children with homework at their small kitchen table. The protest had been peaceful, but determined, with nearly 200 residents showing up. Local news had even covered it. Do you think they'll still build the hotel, Mom? Miguel asked as he worked on his math problems. I don't know, Mijo. These decisions are made by people with a lot more money and power than we have. But we have more people, Sophia pointed out, looking up from her spelling words. And Mr. Hopkins said that matters. Sometimes it does, Lena agreed, though experience had taught her otherwise. After the children were in bed, Lena sat on her back porch, looking at her roses in the moonlight. The red one from Daniel stood in a small vase on the kitchen windowsill. She still wasn't sure what to make of his sudden interest or his request to see the town through her eyes. Was it just a strategy to win over opposition, or had something genuine shifted in him? The next morning was Monday, and Lena arrived at Harborview Inn to find Maria waiting for her with wide eyes. You won't believe what happened, Maria said, pulling Lena into the break room. Mr. Huxley checked in last night, requested the Bayview, suite again, and specifically asked that you be assigned to clean his room. What? Why? I don't know, but Jenny at the front desk said he asked for you by name. Maria looked both concerned and intrigued. What's going on, Lena? Nothing, Lena said quickly. He probably just wants to talk about the development. But as she pushed her cleaning cart toward the Bayview suite, her heart raced. When she knocked on the door, there was no answer, just like before. She used her key card to enter. The suite looked much as it had during his previous stay, but with one striking difference. On every surface, the desk, the coffee table, the nightstands, were vases filled with roses. Not her roses, but expensive arrangements from a florist. And on the bed was a large envelope with her name written on it. Lena set down her cleaning supplies and picked up the envelope. Inside was a folder containing architectural drawings, but not for Seacliff Shores Resort. These showed the existing park and community center, renovated rather than replaced. The gazebo was larger, the playground updated, but the oak trees remained. A note was paperclipped to the plans. "A different kind of development. What do you think? I'll be at Ruby's Diner at 5 p.m. Daniel." Lena stared at the drawings, then at the roses filling the room. Something was happening that she hadn't expected, something that made her feel both hopeful and afraid. What did Daniel Huxley really want from her? And why did the thought of meeting him make her heart beat faster, in a way it hadn't since Carlos? The answers would have to wait until 5 o'clock. For now, she had rooms to clean, children to think about, and a future that suddenly seemed less certain than ever. Lena stood outside Ruby's Diner at 4:55, smoothing her simple blue dress nervously. After finding the plans in Daniel's suite, she'd finished her shift in a daze, picked up the children from school, and asked Mrs. Jenkins to watch them again. "It's not a date," she had insisted when Mrs. Jenkins raised an eyebrow. "It's about the development plans." Yet here she was, having changed clothes and brushed her hair loose from its usual ponytail. In her hand, she clutched the folder with the alternative plans. Through the diner's windows, she could see Daniel already seated in a booth, checking his watch. He wore a casual button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Taking a deep breath, Lena pushed open the door and walked to his booth. Daniel stood as she approached. "So you came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I was curious," she admitted, sliding into the seat across from him. "About these." She placed the folder on the table between them. A waitress came to take their orders, coffee for Daniel, iced tea for Lena. When she left, an awkward silence fell. "Why the change of heart?" Lena finally asked, tapping the folder. Daniel looked out the window at the town square, where people strolled in the early evening light. "Honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe it was seeing the town through your eyes yesterday. Or meeting your children. Or realizing how much money you'd lose fighting the whole town," Lena suggested, still wary of his motives. He smiled slightly. "That too. I'm still a businessman, Lena, but businesses need communities to thrive." He opened the folder. These plans would renovate the existing structures instead of demolishing them. The park stays, the community center gets updated, and we add a smaller boutique hotel on the vacant lot by the marina. Lena studied the drawings. The changes would preserve Seacliff's character while bringing new life to areas that needed it. "It's better," she admitted. "Much better." "But," Daniel prompted, hearing the hesitation in her voice. "But I still don't understand why you're showing these to me first. I'm not on the town council. I don't own property here. I'm just a housekeeper who sells roses," he finished, echoing her thoughts. "You're also the first person who made me see this town as more than a business opportunity. The first person who stood up to me without trying to negotiate a better deal." Their drinks arrived, giving Lena a moment to absorb his words. "What happens now?" she asked after the waitress left. "I present these alternative plans to the town council next week. But first, I'd like your input." He leaned forward. "You know this town better than I ever could. What's missing? What would make this work for people like you?" For the next hour, they talked about Seacliff Cove, its needs, its character, what made it special. Lena felt her guard slowly lowering as Daniel listened, really listened, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions. "The development should include affordable housing," she said. "Not just luxury condos, places where the people who work in shops and restaurants can afford to live. We could designate 20% of residential units as affordable," Daniel agreed, writing it down. "What else?" "The community garden needs to stay, and the library needs more funding. It's the heart of the town for many families." As they talked, the sun began to set, casting golden light through the windows. Lena suddenly realized they'd been talking for nearly 2 hours. "I need to get home to my children," she said, gathering her purse. "Of course." Daniel paid the bill despite her protests. Thank you for your time, Lena, and your insights. Outside the diner, they stood facing each other in the warm evening air. Lena felt a strange tension between them, something unspoken but growing stronger. I'd like to meet with you again, Daniel said, to go over the revisions once I've incorporated your suggestions. Maybe dinner next time? Lena hesitated. Mr. Huxley, Daniel, please. Daniel. I appreciate what you're doing with the development plans, but I'm not sure if... She trailed off, unsure how to express her conflicted feelings. It would just be dinner, he said softly, to discuss the plans. But they both knew it would be more than that. I'll think about it, Lena finally said. Good night, Daniel. As she walked home, Lena's mind raced. Daniel Huxley was nothing like any man she'd known, certainly nothing like Carlos, who had been a high school teacher, gentle and steady. Daniel was from another world, powerful, wealthy, used to getting what he wanted, and yet he had listened to her, changed his plans because of her, looked at her in a way that made her feel seen for the first time in years. It scared her. When she arrived home, Mrs. Jenkins gave her a knowing look. Well, how was your meeting? Productive, Lena said carefully. He's reconsidering the development plans. Mm-hmm. And is that all he's considering? Lena felt her cheeks warm. The children behaved? Angels, as always. Miguel finished his science project. First prize material, if you ask me. After Mrs. Jenkins left, Lena checked on her sleeping children, then sat on her back porch, looking at her roses in the moonlight. Their familiar shapes and scents usually calmed her, but tonight her thoughts kept returning to Daniel. Wednesday morning, Lena arrived at Harborview Inn to find the staff in an uproar. Have you heard? Jenny from reception rushed up to her. Mr. Huxley bought the inn yesterday. The owners just announced it at the morning meeting. Lena felt the floor tilt beneath her. He what? Bought it. But he says nothing's changing. We all keep our jobs, same pay, same everything. He's just going to renovate it as part of his new development plan. Maria appeared, looking equally excited. And guess who he wants to meet with about the renovations? You. He specifically requested your input on the changes. Lena leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. Why hadn't he mentioned this during their meeting? Was this his way of ensuring she couldn't say no to him? She went through her morning routine mechanically, mind churning. When she reached the Bayview suite, she knocked sharply, half hoping Daniel would be out. Come in, his voice called. Daniel was sitting at the desk, papers spread before him. He smiled when he saw her, then frowned at her expression. You heard about the inn, he said, not a question. Why didn't you tell me? Lena demanded, forgetting professionalism in her anger. Was this your plan all along? Buy my workplace so? I'd have to cooperate. Daniel stood, looking genuinely surprised by her reaction. What? No, Lena, that wasn't it at all. The opportunity came up suddenly. The owners approached me after hearing about the revised development plans. And you didn't think to mention it during our 2-hour conversation? It wasn't finalized yet. I didn't want to speak about it until it was certain. He stepped toward her. Lena, this is a good thing. The inn needed updating, and now it will be part of the new Seacliff plan. No one loses their job. In fact, I'm hoping to expand operations, which means more work for everyone. And what do you want from me? She asked, still suspicious. Why request my input specifically? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looking surprisingly vulnerable. Because I value your perspective. You see things I don't, and because, he paused, because I enjoy your company. The simple admission hung in the air between them. Lena felt her anger fading, replaced by confusion. I don't know what you want from me, she said quietly. Neither do I, Daniel admitted. But I'd like to find out. Have dinner with me Friday night. Not to discuss business, just dinner. Lena thought of all the reasons to say no. He was her boss now. He was from a different world. She had her children to think about. She hadn't dated anyone since Carlos died. I can't, she said finally. I'm sorry. Daniel nodded, accepting her decision without argument. I understand. But the offer remains open. That evening, as Lena helped Miguel with his science project, her son looked up suddenly. Mom, why do you look sad? I'm not sad, mijo, just thinking. About Dad? Miguel asked. At 12, he remembered Carlos clearly. His laugh, his patient help with homework, his love for their mother. No, Lena admitted. About someone else. Miguel studied her face. The developer man? Sophia says he likes you. She says that's why he left the rose. Lena was startled by her children's perceptiveness. Mr. Huxley is just a businessman interested in our town. He looks at you the way Dad used to, Miguel said simply, then returned to his project. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. Miguel's words echoed in her mind. Was she betraying Carlos's memory by having feelings for Daniel? Was she fooling herself that someone like Daniel could truly be interested in someone like her? Thursday passed in a blur of work and normal routines. Daniel was out of the hotel all day, meeting with architects and the town council. Lena told herself she was relieved not to see him. Friday morning, she found another rose outside her front door, yellow this time with a card. No pressure. Just thinking of you. Daniel. She brought it inside, adding it to the small collection that now stood on her kitchen windowsill. At work, Jenny pulled her aside. Mr. Huxley requested a meeting with all staff after closing. Something about the renovation plans. At 4 o'clock, the entire Harbour View staff gathered in the small conference room. Daniel stood at the front, displaying architectural renderings of a beautiful updated version of the inn. The renovations will happen in phases, he explained, so we can remain open throughout. We'll increase from 30 rooms to 45, add a spa facility and update all common areas. Lena listened as he outlined his vision, one that preserved the inn's historic charm while bringing it up to modern standards. It was thoughtful, respectful of tradition while looking toward the future. And I'm pleased to announce that Lena Morales has agreed to serve as our staff liaison during the renovation, Daniel continued, making Lena's head snap up in surprise. Her insight into both the inn and the town has been invaluable. She'll receive additional compensation for this role, of course. After the meeting, as others filed out, Lena approached Daniel. I don't recall agreeing to be a liaison, she said quietly. Consider it a standing offer, he replied with a small smile. Like dinner. Their eyes met, and Lena felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. Before she could respond, Maria called her name from the doorway. Lena, there's someone here for you, says it's urgent. In the lobby stood Mrs. Jenkins, looking worried. Sophia was beside her, face tear-streaked. What happened? Lena rushed to her daughter. Miguel fell at school, Mrs. Jenkins explained. He was working on his science project and fell off a ladder. They've taken him to county hospital. I came straight here to get you. Lena's world narrowed to a tunnel of fear. How bad is it? They're not sure. Possible broken arm, maybe concussion. We need to go now. My car's out front, Daniel's voice came from behind her. Lena turned to find him already grabbing his keys. I'll drive you. Too worried to argue, Lena nodded. Minutes later, they were speeding toward the hospital, Sophia sitting quietly in the back seat. He was hanging plants for his experiment, Sophia explained, her voice small, to show how they grow toward light. The ladder tipped over. Lena reached back to squeeze her daughter's hand. It's going to be okay, Mija. At the hospital, Daniel parked in the emergency area. I'll wait here with Sophia, he told Lena. You go find Miguel. Lena rushed inside, heart pounding. A nurse directed her to a curtained area where Miguel lay. On a bed, his arm in a temporary splint, his face lit up when he saw her. Mom, the doctor says I have a green stick fracture. Isn't that a cool name? I hit my head, but the scan showed it's just a mild concussion. Relief washed over Lena as she hugged him carefully. The doctor confirmed Miguel would need a cast for 6 weeks, but would heal completely. The problem is, the doctor added, he needs to stay overnight for observation because of the concussion. Hospital policy for minors. Lena's mind raced. She couldn't leave Sophia alone, and Mrs. Jenkins was leaving town tomorrow to visit her sister. When she returned to the waiting room to explain the situation, Daniel was sitting with Sophia, who was showing him pictures on Lena's phone. This is our garden, Sophia was saying. Mom grows the best roses in town, and this is my school art project that won second place. Daniel looked up as Lena approached. How is he? Broken arm and mild concussion. He needs to stay overnight for observation. She looked at Sophia. Honey, we need to figure out where you'll sleep tonight. She can stay with me at the hotel, Daniel offered. There's a connecting room to my suite that's empty. Or I can cover a hotel room for both of you near the hospital. Lena hesitated, but Sophia spoke up. Can we stay at the hotel, Mum? Please. I've never stayed in a hotel before. Daniel smiled at the girl's excitement. It's settled then. I'll take Sophia back to your house to pack what she needs, then to the hotel. You stay with Miguel. Lena looked at him with new eyes. Why are you doing all this? Because you need help, he said simply. And I can give it. That's what people do for each other, right? It was such a simple statement, yet it revealed a depth to Daniel she hadn't fully seen before. This wasn't about business or even attraction. It was basic human kindness. Thank you, she said, meaning it completely for the first time. That night, as Lena sat beside Miguel's hospital bed watching him sleep, she thought about Daniel Huxley, how he had driven them to the hospital without hesitation, how gently he had spoken to Sophia, how he had stepped in to help without trying to take over. It was a side of him she hadn't expected, one that reminded her, just a little, of Carlos. The war. Next morning, a nurse brought in a large arrangement of colorful flowers with a card. For the brave scientist. Get well soon. Daniel, Miguel's face lit up. Mom, look, Mr. Huxley sent me flowers. Lena read the card, touched by the thoughtfulness. When Daniel arrived to pick them up, Miguel insisted on showing him the flowers. They're better than Mom's. Roses, he whispered loudly, making both adults laugh. As they drove back to Seacliff Cove, Miguel chattering about his hospital adventure from the back seat, Lena looked over at Daniel. Sophia told me you let her order room service for dinner and breakfast, Daniel grinned. She ordered enough food for 3 people, said she wanted to try everything. I hope that was okay. It was kind, Lena said softly. Thank you for taking care of her. She's a wonderful kid, both of them are. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Miguel. You've done an amazing job, Lena. The simple compliment meant more to her than all the roses or grand gestures. When they arrived at Lena's cottage, Sophia ran out to meet them, followed by Mrs. Jenkins. After getting Miguel settled on the sofa with his new cast proudly displayed, Lena walked Daniel to his car. I cancelled my trip back to the city, he said. I'll be staying in Seacliff through next week. The town council is voting on the revised. Plans on Wednesday. Lena nodded, then gathered her courage. About dinner. If the offer still stands, I'm free tomorrow night. Daniel's smile was worth every moment of her hesitation. The offer definitely still stands. I'll pick you up at 7? 7 it is. As she watched him drive away, Lena felt something she hadn't experienced in 5 years, the beginning of something new, something hopeful. Inside, she found Miguel and Sophia whispering together on the sofa. They stopped when she entered, looking suspiciously innocent. What are you two plotting? She asked. Nothing, they answered in unison, then giggled. Later, as Lena watered her roses in the backyard, Sophia joined her. Mom, do you like Mr. Huxley? Lena considered deflecting the question, then decided on honesty. I think I might be starting to. Does that bother you? Sophia thought for a moment. No. He's nice. And he doesn't talk to us like we're babies. She picked a small rose, bud. Dad would want you to be happy, right? Tears sprang to Lena's eyes as she hugged her daughter. Yes, Mika, I think he would. That night, Lena stood in front of her closet, realizing she had nothing appropriate for a dinner date. Her last date with anyone had been with Carlos years ago. Since then, her wardrobe had become purely practical. Work clothes, gardening clothes, mom clothes. Sunday morning, she called Maria. I need your help. I have a dinner meeting tonight with Daniel Huxley. Maria's squeal was so loud, Lena had to hold the phone away from her ear. I knew it. I'll be right over. We're going shopping. By 6 o'clock, Lena stood in front of her, Mira hardly recognizing herself. The simple navy dress Maria had helped her choose flattered her figure without being flashy. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and the minimal makeup enhanced her natural beauty. You look like a princess, Sophia whispered from the doorway. Not quite, Lena laughed. But thank you, sweetheart. At precisely 7, the doorbell rang. Miguel answered it, his cast now covered with colorful signatures from friends who had visited earlier. Daniel stood on the porch holding a small box and wearing a suit that made him look even more handsome than usual. When Lena appeared behind her son, Daniel's expression made all the shopping and primping worthwhile. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." Lena turned to the children. "Mrs. Jenkins will be here in 15 minutes. Be good, okay? Miguel, no rough play with that cast." "We'll be fine, Mum," Miguel assured her with the confidence of someone suddenly feeling very grown up with his injury. Daniel handed her the box. "This is for you." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a rose. "It's lovely," Lena said as he helped her fasten it around her wrist. The restaurant was in the next town over, a small, elegant place with candlelight and ocean views. As they were seated at a corner table, Lena felt nervous all over again. "I haven't done this in a long time," she admitted. "Neither have I," Daniel said. "Not a real date anyway. Business dinners don't count." They ordered wine, and gradually Lena felt herself relaxing. Daniel was easy to talk to when he wasn't being the powerful developer. He told her about growing up in Boston, his start in real estate, his divorce 10 years earlier. "No children?" Lena asked. "No. Charlotte, my ex-wife, didn't want kids. Said they'd interfere with her career." He swirled his wine thoughtfully. "I think that's when we started growing apart. I always wanted a family." Lena told him about her life with Carlos, how they'd met in college, his battle with cancer, her struggle to keep going for the children's sake. "You're the strongest person I've ever met," Daniel said. "Most people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure." "I had no choice," Lena shrugged. "My children needed me. You had choices. You chose the hardest, most honorable path." His eyes held hers. "That's rare, Lena." After dinner, they walked along the marina, the moon casting silver light on the water. When Daniel took her hand, it felt natural, right? "I'm presenting the final plans to the town council on Wednesday," he said. "If they approve, work could start by next month. And if they don't," he smiled, "then I'll revise again until we get it right. This project has become about more than just profit for me." They stopped walking, facing each other in the moonlight. "What has it become about?" Lena asked softly. "Community, legacy, creating something that benefits everyone." He touched her cheek gently. "And maybe about finding something I didn't know I was looking for." When he kissed her, Lena felt as if the world had tilted on its axis. It was tender and questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. Instead, she found herself responding, her heart racing like a teenager's. When they finally broke apart, they were both smiling. "I've wanted to do that since the town meeting," Daniel admitted. "Maybe even since you left that first rose in my room?" "I've wanted you to," Lena confessed, surprising herself with her honesty. The drive back to Seacliff was quiet, but a comfortable quiet, filled with new possibilities. When Daniel walked her to her door, he kissed her again, briefly but with promise. "Can I see you tomorrow?" he asked. "I have to work. I'm your boss, remember?" "I could give you the day off," Lena laughed. "That would be an abuse of power, Mr. Huxley." "Worth it, Ms. Morales." As she watched him drive away, Lena touched the rose charm on her bracelet and smiled. Whatever was happening between them, it felt like a beginning rather than an ending. Inside, she found Mrs. Jenkins asleep in the armchair, a knowing smile appearing on her face as she woke. "Well," the older woman asked, "how was your business?" "Dinner?" "Enlightening," Lena replied, unable to hide her smile. As Mrs. Jenkins gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. "I've known you since you were Sophia's age, Lena. It's good to see you happy again. Carlos would approve." "You think so?" "I know so. He always said life was for living, remember?" After Mrs. Jenkins left, Lena checked on her sleeping children, then sat on her back porch looking at her garden. In the moonlight, the roses seemed to glow with a new vibrancy, as if reflecting the awakening in her own heart. For the first time in 5 years, Lena allowed herself to imagine a future different from the careful survival she had built. A future with possibility, with joy, perhaps even with love. But as she rose to go inside, a shadow of doubt crossed her mind. Daniel had changed his development plans, had bought the inn, had been kind to her children. But how much of his interest in her was genuine, and how much was about winning over the town. Wednesday's town council vote would reveal much about Daniel's true intentions, and about whether the fragile bloom of feeling between them had any chance of growing into something real and lasting. The day of the town council meeting arrived with perfect spring weather. Lena had arranged to leave work early, as the meeting was scheduled for 5 o'clock. The entire town was buzzing with anticipation. "Are you nervous?" Maria asked as they cleaned adjoining rooms at the inn. "About the council vote?" "Of course." Lena avoided meeting her friend's eyes. "I meant about seeing Daniel present the plans. Plans you helped create." Maria leaned against the doorframe. "Lena Morales, I've known you for years. Something is happening between you two." Lena smiled despite herself. After their dinner date, Daniel had been called back to the city for emergency meetings with his investors. They'd spoken by phone each night, their conversations growing longer and more personal. He'd arrived back in Seacliff just this morning. "Maybe something is," she admitted, "but it's complicated." "Because he's rich and you're not? Because you have children? Or because you're afraid to trust him?" "All of the above," Lena sighed. "Plus, what if the council rejects his plans? Will he stay around then? Or will Seacliff just become another failed project in his portfolio?" Maria squeezed her shoulder. "You'll never know unless you give it a chance." That afternoon, Lena picked up the children from school. Miguel's cast had become a badge of honor, covered with signatures and drawings from classmates. "Can we go to the meeting?" Miguel asked as they walked home. "Everyone's talking about it at school." "It might be boring for you," Lena warned. "But Mr. Huxley will be there," Sophia chimed in. "And he's your boyfriend now, right?" "He's not my boyfriend," Lena corrected, though she felt her cheeks warming. "We're just friends." "Friends who kiss?" Miguel teased. "Mrs. Jenkins told Mrs. Chen at the bakery that she saw you two kissing on the porch." Lena made a mental note to have a word with Mrs. Jenkins about gossiping in front of the children. "We're still figuring things out," she said carefully. "And yes, you can come to the meeting if you promise to behave." The community center was packed by 4:45. Lena found seats near the back, with Miguel and Sophia squeezed in beside her. Soph's mood was tense but hopeful. Word had spread about the revised plans, though few had seen the details. At precisely 5, Mayor Thompson called the meeting to order. "As you all know, we're here to vote on the revised development proposal for Seacliff Cove. Mr. Huxley, you have the floor." Daniel approached the podium looking confident in a suit that managed to be professional without seeming too citified. For the small-town audience, his eyes scanned the room, softening when they found Lena and the children. "Thank you, Mayor Thompson, council members and residents of Seacliff Cove," he began. "3 weeks ago, I stood before you with a vision for this town that frankly wasn't your vision. I saw potential for profit, but missed the heart of what makes this place special." He clicked to his first slide showing the original resort plans. "This was my initial proposal." Then he clicked to the next slide, revealing the completely reimagined development. "And this is what I'm presenting today." A murmur of approval ran through the crowd as Daniel explained the new concept. The park would be enhanced, not removed. The community center would be renovated and expanded. Harborview Inn would be upgraded while preserving its historic character. Phase 1 also includes a mixed-income housing development on the vacant land east of town, Daniel continued. At least 30% of these units will be designated as affordable housing for local workers and families. Lena felt a surge of pride. He'd increased the affordable housing percentage from what they'd discussed. "But the most important feature," Daniel said, clicking to a new slide, "is the Seacliff Community Trust. My company will establish this trust with an initial investment of $5 million to be used for scholarships, small business grants, and preservation of historic areas. Local residents will form the board of this trust." The crowd broke into applause. Daniel waited for it to subside before continuing. "This isn't charity, it's smart business. A thriving community creates sustainable growth and long-term value." He paused, his eyes finding Lena's again. "And sometimes the greatest value comes from unexpected places." After the presentation, council members asked detailed questions which Daniel answered with impressive knowledge of the revised plans. Finally, Mayor Thompson called for the vote. All in favor of approving the Seacliff development project as presented by Mr. Huxley. 5 hands rose without hesitation. Motion carried unanimously, she announced. Congratulations, Mr. Huxley, and thank you for listening to our community. The room erupted in applause and excited conversation. Daniel was immediately surrounded by council members and local business owners eager to discuss the project's next steps. Lena stood, gathering her things. We should go home, she told the children. It's getting late. But don't you want to talk to Mr. Huxley? Sophia asked, clearly disappointed. He's busy right now, Lena explained, and we have homework to finish. As they made their way to the exit, Lena felt a mixture of emotions. The revised development would be good for Seacliff, good for her job security, good for her children's future. Yet something held her back from joining the celebration. What would happen now? Would Daniel's interest in her fade once the project was secured, or worse, had his attention been merely strategic all along? Lena, wait. She turned to see Daniel making his way through the crowd toward them. He looked happier than she'd ever seen him. His professional mask dropped completely. You're leaving? He asked, slightly out of breath. I thought we could celebrate. Congratulations, she said sincerely. Your presentation was perfect. Our presentation, he corrected. Half those ideas were yours. He looked down at Miguel and Sophia. What did you two think? Boring adult stuff? I liked the part about the park getting new playground equipment, Sophia said shyly. And the science program at the community center sounds awesome, Miguel added. Daniel smiled. I'm especially excited about that part too. He turned back to Lena. Please stay, there's something important I want to talk to you about. Before Lena could answer, Bill Hopkins approached with several other business owners. Daniel, we need to discuss the boardwalk renovation timeline. Daniel looked torn. Give me 5 minutes, he told Lena. Please? We really should get home, she said gently. The children have school tomorrow, but congratulations again, the town will thrive with these plans. As they walked home in the warm evening air, Miguel looked up at his mother. You like him a lot, don't you? Lena could never hide anything from her observant son. Yes, she admitted. I do. Then why did we leave? Sophia asked. Because sometimes, Lena searched for the right words. Sometimes grown-up relationships are complicated. Daddy would want you to be happy, Miguel said firmly. He told me that before he died. He said I had to take care of you and Sophia, but also that you needed to smile more. Tears sprang to Lena's eyes. He said that? Miguel nodded solemnly. And Mr. Huxley makes you smile. I've been watching. By the time they reached their cottage, Lena's emotions were in turmoil. The children's acceptance of Daniel touched her deeply, yet her fears remained. Daniel's world was so different from hers. Once the excitement of the project faded, would he move on to the next business opportunity, the next town, the next woman, after? Putting the children to bed, Lena sat on her back porch, breathing in the night scent of her roses. In just a few weeks, Daniel Huxley had upended her carefully ordered life. She'd spent 5 years since Carlos's death focusing solely on survival, raising her children, keeping their home, maintaining the garden that connected them to him. Now, for the first time, she was thinking of her own happiness. It was both thrilling and terrifying. The sound of a car pulling up interrupted her thoughts. Moments later, a knock came at her front door. Daniel stood on her porch, his tie loosened, looking tired but determined. I'm sorry to come by so late, but you left before I could tell you the most important part. The most important part of what? Lena asked, stepping outside and closing the door quietly behind her. How of everything? He took a deep breath. Lena, I'm moving to Seacliff. She stared at him, processing his words. For the development? I thought you'd manage it from the city. Not just for the development, for me. He moved closer, his gaze never leaving hers. I've been thinking a lot about what I want in my life. Success used to mean one thing to me: profits, expansion, acquisition. But since I met you, that definition has changed. Daniel, please let me finish. I've spent 15 years building a company, but no real home, no real connections. His voice softened. Then I met a woman who sells roses on a boardwalk, who stood up to me when no one else would, who showed me what really matters. Lena felt her heart racing as Daniel continued. I've purchased a house on Oak Lane. The blue Victorian with the wraparound porch and the big yard. He smiled at her surprise. Yes, I noticed you looking at it when we walked through town. The papers were finalized today. You're really staying? Lena whispered, hardly daring to believe it. I'm really staying. I'm opening a branch office here for Huxley Development. Warren is taking over as CEO of the parent company. He took her, hands in his. I want to build something meaningful here. Not just buildings, but a life. Why? She asked, needing to hear him say it. Because I've fallen in love with this town. He stepped closer, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. And with you, Lena Morales. I've fallen completely, unexpectedly, in love with you. The words Lena had both hoped for and feared hung in the night air between them. It's too soon, she said softly. We barely know each other. I know that you're kind even to people who don't deserve it, Daniel countered. I know that you're stronger than anyone I've ever met. I know that your children are wonderful because you're a wonderful mother. His thumb traced circles on her palm. And I know that I want to wake up every morning in this town knowing you're here. What about your life in the city? Your friends, your social circle? What about them? I had business associates, not friends. Networking events, not real connections. He shook his head. I was successful and completely alone until a rose appeared on my pillow. Despite her reservations, Lena felt her heart opening to the possibility he offered. I'm scared, she admitted. I've been on my own for so long. I know. And I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. Just give us a chance to see where this goes. He released her hands. I'm here. I'm staying. However long it takes. As he turned to leave, Lena made a decision. Daniel, wait. When he faced her again, she stepped forward and kissed him. Not the hesitant kiss of their first date, but one filled with hope and possibility. Would you like to come to dinner tomorrow? She asked when they finally broke apart. A proper family dinner with the children. His smile was answer enough. Spring moved into summer in Seacliff Cove. Construction began on the first phase of the development, bringing new jobs and energy to the town. Daniel's transformation from outsider to community member happened gradually. With each town meeting he attended, each local event he supported, each improvement that took shape under his guidance. The relationship between Daniel and Lena deepened. Caswell, built on small moments rather than grand gestures. He helped Miguel with his summer science camp projects. He taught Sophia to ride the bicycle he gave her for her birthday. He fixed the leaky kitchen sink that had troubled Lena for months. And every Sunday, rain or shine, he helped Lena set up her rose stand on the boardwalk, then stepped back to let her run her business as she always had, with independence and pride. By midsummer, the changes in Lena were obvious to everyone who knew her. The weight of constant worry had lifted. She laughed more easily. She had even started taking art classes at the newly renovated community center, something she'd loved in college, but had abandoned after Carlos became ill. The blue Victorian house on Oak Lane stood finished, but empty, as Daniel insisted on taking his time. It needs to be right, he told Lena. No rushing. One evening in late July, Daniel invited Lena and the children for a picnic at the park. The weather was perfect, warm with a gentle breeze off the ocean. After they ate, Daniel suggested a walk. I have something I want to show you, he said mysteriously. They strolled through town, ending up in front of the blue Victorian. The porch lights were on, illuminating the freshly painted trim and new flower beds. Is it finished? Sophia asked excitedly. Daniel had allowed the children to help choose paint colors and fixtures, making them part of the process. Almost, Daniel said, pulling a key from his pocket. Want to see the inside? The children raced up the porch steps. Lena followed more slowly, taking in the beauty of the house. A house she had admired for years but never imagined entering. Inside, the rooms were painted in warm colors, furnished with a perfect blend of elegant and comfortable pieces, family-friendly, but beautiful. The kitchen was large and bright, with windows overlooking a backyard big enough for children to play and gardens to grow. It's wonderful, Lena said, genuinely impressed. You've done an amazing job. Come see upstairs, Daniel urged. The second floor had 4 bedrooms, a master suite, and 3 others. Miguel and Sofia immediately claimed rooms, exclaiming over details that somehow matched their personalities perfectly. And this would be a guest room, Daniel explained, showing Lena the 4th bedroom, or maybe an office, or anything else it needs to be. The implication was clear, though unspoken. This house had been designed with all of them in mind. As the children explored, Daniel led Lena to the backyard. There, in the fading evening light, she gasped at what she saw: a rose garden. Not just any rose garden, but a careful recreation of her own, expanded and enhanced. Every variety she grew in her small rented yard was here, plus dozens more. A stone path wound through the beds, leading to a small gazebo perfect for evening relaxation. "Daniel," she breathed. "What is this?" "Your garden," he said simply. "Or what it could be. I had expert help. The Horticultural Society gave me advice on varieties that would thrive here." Lena walked among the rose bushes, touching blooms that ranged from deep crimson to pale pink to purest white. All healthy, all thriving in their new home. Near the center of the garden stood a special planting, a rose bush with blossoms that shifted from cream to blush pink, just like the first one she had left in his hotel room. "I still don't understand," she said, turning back to him. "Why go to all this trouble?" Daniel joined her on the path, taking both her hands in his. "Because I want this to be your garden, Lena. I want this to be your home, yours and Miguel's and Sofia's." He dropped to one knee on the stone path, still holding her hands. "I know it hasn't been long. I know we come from different worlds. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life." From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. "Lena Morales, I love you. I love your children. I love the life we've begun to build together. Will you marry me?" The ring inside was perfect, not ostentatiously large but beautifully designed, with a diamond surrounded by tiny pink stones that caught the evening light. "The pink stones are from the same mine in Brazil where Carlos's wedding band came from," Daniel said softly. "Miguel helped me find out. We wanted him to be part of this somehow." Tears filled Lena's eyes at this unexpected thoughtfulness. "You involved Miguel in choosing the ring, both children. We've had several secret meetings." Daniel smiled. "They've been surprisingly good at keeping it quiet." As if on cue, Miguel and Sofia appeared at the back door, watching anxiously. "Can we come out now?" Sofia called. "Did you ask her yet?" Daniel laughed. "I did ask her, but she hasn't answered yet." The children hurried down the steps and across the yard. "Would you be able to attend?" "I'd need to find someone to watch my children," Lena said, mind already racing to who she could ask. "Please try. 7 o'clock at the community center. The developer will be presenting his plans. People should know." "What's coming?" After hanging up, Lena stared at the wall calendar with its picture of roses for April. Everything could change if this development went through. Her job, her home, her children's school, everything. Meanwhile, across town at Harbor View Inn, Daniel Huxley returned to his suite after a day of meetings. He'd walked the entire beachfront, marking properties on his map, calculating costs and potential profits. The development could make him millions if he played it right. He loosened his tie and tossed his jacket onto a chair, his mind still running. Numbers. Then he saw it, a perfect white rose lying on his pillow. Daniel picked it up, frowning. There was no card, no explanation. Had the housekeeper left it? Some kind of standard Harbor View touch he hadn't noticed yesterday? He brought it to his nose, inhaling its subtle fragrance. Something about it seemed familiar, tugging at the edges of his memory. Then he remembered. The woman on the boardwalk, with her basket of flowers. The one he'd brushed off so rudely. But surely it couldn't be from her. Why would she leave him a flower after he'd been so dismissive? He set the rose in a water glass by the bed, strangely reluctant to throw it away. Then he opened his laptop to finalize the presentation for tomorrow night's town meeting. On his screen was the proposed layout for Seacliff Shores Resort, an exclusive beachfront destination that would replace the aging buildings currently dotting the shoreline. Phase 1 would require demolishing several structures, including the park and community center. "They'll thank me when property values double," he muttered to himself. But as he worked late into the night, his eyes kept drifting to the white rose, and somehow its quiet presence in the room made him feel both unsettled and intrigued. Tomorrow, he would meet the townspeople and sell them on his vision for their future. A future that would make him rich and change their lives forever. What he didn't know was that among those faces would be the woman with the roses. And she had already started to change something in him, whether he realized it or not. The community. Center was packed by 6:45. Lena slipped into a seat in the back row, grateful to Mrs. Jenkins for watching the children on short notice. All around her, neighbors greeted each other with worried faces and hushed voices. Mayor Thompson stood at the podium, a gray-haired woman who had served the town for 15 years. Folks, let's get started. As you know, we're here to discuss a development proposal for Seacliff Cove. I've invited Mr. Daniel Huxley to present his plans directly to you all. Daniel strode to the front of the room with the confidence of a man who rarely heard the word no. He wore a blue button-down shirt with no tie, a calculated attempt to seem more approachable, though his leather shoes still gleamed with city. "Polish, good evening," he began, his voice filling the room. "I appreciate you all coming tonight to hear about an exciting opportunity for Seacliff Cove." Lena watched as he clicked through slides showing gleaming buildings and waterfront promenades. The images were beautiful, but they looked nothing like the town she loved. Seacliff Shores Resort will bring jobs, increase tourism year-round and raise property values for everyone, Daniel continued. Phase 1 includes a luxury hotel, upscale shopping, and a fine dining restaurant where the current park and community center stand. A murmur ran through the crowd. The park was where town festivals happened, where children played, where families gathered on summer evenings. The old buildings would be demolished by fall, with construction completed in 18 months, Daniel said, showing a timeline. "We're prepared to offer generous compensation to affected property owners." Lena felt her chest tighten. Harborview Inn wasn't on his demolition list yet. But if a fancy new hotel opened, who would stay at the modest inn where she worked? After the presentation, Mayor Thompson opened the floor for questions. Hands shot up across the room. Bill Hopkins stood first. "That park's been there since my grandfather's time. Where are our kids supposed to play?" "The development includes green spaces," Daniel answered smoothly. "More modern, more secure." "What about the businesses on the boardwalk?" asked another voice. "We all are." That night, after the celebration had ended and they returned to their home, the beautiful blue Victorian now filled with the sounds and signs of family life, Lena stood in her rose garden. Even in winter, some hardy varieties continued to bloom, defying the season with their determination. Daniel joined her, wrapping a warm coat around her shoulders. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Huxley?" The name still felt new, but right. "I was thinking about that day on the boardwalk, when you brushed past me and said those unkind words. My darkest moment," Daniel grimaced. "I'm still sorry about that." "Don't be," Lena said, turning to face him. "If you hadn't been so dismissive, I might never have left you that first rose, and everything else might never have happened." "So my rudeness was actually romantic?" he teased. "No," she laughed, wrapping her arms around his waist. "But sometimes the things we regret lead us exactly where we're meant to be." Daniel kissed her under the winter stars, surrounded by roses that, like their love, had found a way to bloom, even in unlikely seasons. Together, they had built something neither could have imagined that spring day when a rose grazed a stranger's coat, and a journey began. A journey that proved some flowers are worth every thorn, and some loves are worth every regret the end.